Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. We're talking about the brand new 2021 release, Dune. This is your host, Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey guys, it's Prague, part 1.
And this is DeLorean Wolfgang. Sorry, nothing funny this week.
To Prague's point in his intro, it is part 1.
It is.
Oh, part 1 of what?
2.
Did you watch the movie before we go into this episode?
I will say, guys, I did. But
okay. All right, I was making sure.
But my God. I don't even know. Do we just dive in? Do we just start this thing right away, or do you want to...
Don't be confused with the 80s version by David Lynch starring Kyle MacLachlan and the whole Twin Peaks connection. This is not the same movie. This does not have the same tone or atmosphere or anything.
At all.
Just heads up.
That was made in 1984, I believe.
Correct. It's also not the miniseries that was on Sci-Fi, so it's not that either. It's a whole new thing.
And allegedly, they're making an HBO Max TV show tied to Dune, right?
At this point, I don't know. I think originally they were supposed to, but now I think they're just waiting to see how this does. So possibly.
Yeah, part 2 hasn't even been greenlit. I do know that.
Yeah, I just saw that it has been greenlit, and I'm like, wait a second, you literally made this movie to have a sequel, but you don't know if you can actually have a sequel.
And this movie cost $165 million to make, and it grossed $40 million at the box office. I know it's pandemic and interests have changed, and it came to HBO Max at the same time, but that doesn't sound the most promising to set up a sequel and a TV show spinoff and a whole franchise.
Possibly. The numbers I saw were more than that, but still not enough to make budget. I think it was like 158 total. So we'll see how that pans out over the next weekend.
Yeah.
Either way, it's not good. It's not great for anybody, but
that's not good at all, man. Especially if it took you said 110
65
million? Oh, 165 million. That's insane numbers. They didn't even make half their budget back. That's
opening
crazy.
Weekend. It's this only opening weekend, so there's
opening weekends,
word of
all
mouth.
that
There's all sorts of stuff.
I will say this movie
word
was
of mouth.
So
word of mouth.
hyped.
We'll see our podcast.
But we also don't know what the numbers were on HBO's end for streaming. I know they take that into account for new subscribers, so we're not giving those numbers yet.
Well, they're getting my $15 a month, so yay!
But it's all about the new ones. I know.
Is it really about the new ones? Like that's what I heard. That's how they do the numbers. Is they like, okay, I'm gonna sign up for this to watch Dune, and they go, okay.
That's how Netflix does it. Yeah.
Really, that's so weird. That's such a bizarre way of doing their numbers.
I know.
It's
the way it is. The new world, man. It's weird. Strange times.
Well,
anyways.
If you're new here,
if you are new here, with the Secondary Heroes, we like to kind of go over movies, analyze them, but we also want a spoiler-free review in case you haven't watched Dune yet. You can listen to us for the first few minutes, then pause it, watch the movie, because we're going to spoil it intently after about the 10-minute mark. So keep that in mind if you're listening. Pleasure. And one kind of note I would like is that this comes from Denis Villeneuve, and he's made Blade Runner 2049 and Arrival. So if you haven't seen either of those movies, he has a very distinct style that's a relatively slow burn. They're beautifully shot and they're slow burn. Arrival was the original Squid Game before we had the new popular sensation on Netflix. And Blade Runner 2049 is set in the future. It's essentially a crime noir somehow set in the future. They took the ideas of like 1940s films and combined it with a futuristic idea. But I find it better than the original. So for me, I liked both those movies, so I was hyped for Dune.
Interesting. All right.
I personally really enjoyed Arrival. That was with who was in that? Amy Adams. I really enjoyed that. It was beautifully shot. I hated the other one that you mentioned, 2049 or whatever.
Yep.
Blade Runner. Didn't like the original, didn't like the new one. I thought Blade Runner was god awful, but I'll leave it to that. Prague, what did you? Yeah, we're not quite at our review yet, are we?
No, Denis Villeneuve is an interesting director. He is visually stunning. I think his craft for creating the mise en scene is fantastic. I think his films can be to Trevor's point, like a slow burn. They can be kind of boring at times, but when they do get boring, I tend to just fixate on the background and be like, you know what, this is a boring section. I'm just going to pay attention to like the music, the score, the lighting, the colors, the framing of the scene, whatever the case may be. So my expectations for this were that, knowing Dune, that Dune could be complicated and could be dry and boring on screen.
Dry like sand?
No, nice. I like that one. That's a good pun. My expectations weren't necessarily high for the film going into it. So we're going to get into some spoiler-free.
Well, that's interesting because I actually heard that this was like super hyped. Like they were hyping
this movie
like crazy.
I would say it was super hyped to cinephiles, not to anybody else. I don't think anybody else knew what this was or cared. I think the only people that cared about this were people who read the books back when they were in high school, or people that were cinephiles that love his body of work, that, you know, love cinematography and stuff. Not too sure if the masses were. I think that's probably why they brought on the younger actors who are popular to star in the movie. That's my guess.
Well, and that was another thing about the movie, is the fact that it was star-studded. I mean, you had major names in this movie. I mean, I think that's what really gave it such a hype, is having the type of names that they were able to throw in there.
Sure. I think a lot of actors want to work with him too. You know, actors like to work with those kind of directors that are like bigger than life type storytellers. Whether they're good or not, they like to work with those types of filmmakers.
Have either of you guys read the books?
I have.
So I actually got excited about this movie coming out that I downloaded the audiobook, and I just never got around to getting to it. So I was like, well, screw it. I'll just watch the movie at this point. And you, Trevor, did you read it?
I have not read the book. I've heard that it's 800 pages of dialogue heavy that leaves a lot to the reader's imagination to kind of depict the world that's going on. So not necessarily my cup of tea.
No, it was a tough read. I got a lot from it in my own mind, but it was a tough read. It is dense. It is a very dense. Like, the fact that anyone has ever tried to film this and it's been done 3 times now is quite the feat. I don't know if it's necessary, but anyways, we'll get into it.
Okay, right. Spoiler-free time. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
I think we knew you would want to go first.
Yes,
sir.
As dense as you said that book was, this movie pretty much felt like I read an 800-page book, because I was bored out of my gourd. It was just, I mean, yes, visually beautiful. There were some scenes that I was like, wow, this is really pretty. And then I would just get bored again. And here's the thing, is maybe I was just not quite in the mood for it. I watched it last night. I'm wondering if it was a mood thing. I needed to be in the right mood for this movie, and I was not there, because I felt myself, I forced myself to stay off my phone, except for the one time that I text you guys during the movie where I said, this movie is so boring.
It was all caps, by the way. All caps.
And multiple O's in both so and boring. Mm-hmm. It was that boring to me. This is not made for me. This is this was Luke Skywalker pretty much staying on Tatooine and doing nothing and just boring an audience. There, I said it. Dune was boring. I didn't like it. I actually should have waited till the end of this podcast to do this part, but because nobody's going to want to listen afterwards. That's it for me.
Maybe
adios, y'all.
Who knows? Maybe they're interested in your hot take, Alex. They might. I mean, it basically is Luke Skywalker. I mean, it literally is Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. That's kind of where.
Yeah. If he became friends with the Sand People, and it was Luke Skywalker's thing. Yeah. Okay. There we go. There's my. Sure. Yeah.
What did you think?
So, I see 100% where Alex is coming from, and I think it's worse than boring. Just from the idea, the standpoint is that it feels kind of like Incredibles 2. In terms of movie design, this is one of the best things I've seen shot and put on camera, just in terms of it has like that air of Lawrence of Arabia in terms of sand shots and everything. And that was made in the 60s. Imagine if you did that kind of film today in 2021. That's what it's like. And then all the CGI of the ships really excellently crafted. The sound design is super intense. And then there's the actual just heart of the film where there isn't one. It felt like a lifeless vessel where I didn't care about any single character on screen. It didn't seem like all these star-studded names acted at all. I don't know if there was one bit of personality shown by any of these actors that I've seen show a bunch of personality in various types of roles across anything else. I don't know if that's by design or what, but there was just a lifeless vessel for 2 hours and 35 minutes that was just, I felt like they could have done so much, and being bogged down by all of the different houses and names of different planets and trying to create, that wasn't necessarily the problem. It usually is. They went about it in the most boring way possible. But still, I feel like this should have been a TV show where they go into like different sequences. Like this entire movie feels like it could have been 8 episodes where we leave into cliffhangers when we meet different characters or different things happen and there's betrayals or sandworms or what have you. But as 2 hours and 35 minutes, that was a tough watch to get through, regardless of how beautifully it's shot and how everything is made as well as you could make a movie. And it was still not a good movie.
All right, there you go.
I'm having a hard time jumping in there. I wanted to jump in so many times to agree with everything you said.
We have plenty of time to do that in this
Okay,
podcast episode. So this film met my expectations. It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Having read the source material, I'm like, I don't know how he's going to be able to do this in this film. To your point, Trevor, all of his movies feel like that to me. They're beautiful, empty nothingness. It's just actors that are just not acting. They're just on the screen for him to shoot in stagnant still frames that are beautiful to look at, but are boring as hell. Then this was no exception. But, and I think this has to do with the fact that I have read the books, is I actually enjoyed myself. I didn't love the film, but I enjoyed my experience of watching it, if that makes any sense. Because to me, it felt more like ambient music I would have had in the background while reading the book or something. Like it had like a tone to it. It was like a tone piece. It didn't feel like a film. It felt like, here's the tone of the book so that you can now read the book and know what it looks like and feels like. Instead of here is what's happening. Because I feel like people who have not read the books are not really understanding much of anything other than the basic skeleton of the story, which is like 10% of the story. So well, I don't know. I think it could have helped. I would say that I did enjoy it, and I think about it a lot. But I don't want to say it's bad. It's bad in terms of the narrative, like how he structured it. To Trevor's point, I will say the cinematography, the music, were good. I don't know what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to hype up this movie, but
so one other piece
could have been a TV show.
I want to emphasize that I feel like the sound mixing was so bad that I had to turn on the subtitles to watch the film, even though it's in English.
They whispered everything. Everything was a whisper in this entire movie.
There's so much bass in this movie.
There's a lot of bass.
I had to just keep, like, if I was at a movie theater, I would have missed half of it because I couldn't pause it. I couldn't rewind it. What did they just say? And I couldn't turn on subtitles. So I'm glad I did watch it at home on HBO Max.
Yeah, I will say that the problem is that the bass comes up like almost the heaviest during the dialogue as well, which was confusing because the dialogue is very important, especially in the dream sequences, and all of that gets lost because you can't hear it. It's just wawing.
Well, and I feel like each scene took so incredibly long. Like the mother would go, "Paul, where are you going?" We would have to wait almost 30 seconds for his response. "Nowhere, mother." And that was
yeah.
Why did I have to wait?
I hate to say it, but yeah.
Oh my god!
Right. He could have fit the entire book into this runtime if he wanted to, but he didn't. He's going to stretch it out to 2 or 3.
I ended up listening, or let me retract. I ended up trying to listen to a podcast reviewing this movie, or listen to something. I needed to listen to something just to refresh my brain on this because I don't feel like I retained anything except for a few of the visuals.
Sure.
I started that podcast, turned it off after like 5 minutes because I got bored listening to them talk about the movie. And I'm like, good God, Is that how boring this movie is the fact that I got bored listening to someone else talk about this boring movie? But
could be.
The cool thing that I did learn was that from what these guys said is that the director was very true to the book. Like he tried to keep everything except for a couple dialogue lines. He pretty much kept everything to the book. And that's why it's so long, and we're going to have multiple long movies. Hold on, multiple long movies.
Maybe. My question to you too is: do you feel like you have an understanding of the story by watching that film?
What I understood, because honestly, when I
not spoiling anything, I'm just saying. Yes,
no. Of course. Okay. I felt lost almost immediately. Mm-hmm. Like I understood that he was having dreams and he has like some kind of powers or something like that, and they have to go to some planet because there's oregano spice on the planet that they need. I don't know.
Tasty spice.
So yeah, and that was another thing. They said spice about 1 million times in this movie, and I'm like, we get it. We know that you're on this planet for spice. That's a spicy movie.
It is. Okay, Trevor, did you get a handle on it? Do you think, or was it too muddled? Do you think?
I just didn't care. Like, again, to your point, if you said 10% is the skeleton, that's probably, I get the kind of what the houses are doing, why there's an emperor telling them to do all the backstabbing, sabotage things. And it's a chosen one story we've seen the chosen one story countless times. I got it.
The cool thing is not to spoil the second half, but it is not what you would expect. So it is kind of neat in that way. So it's a little bit of an inverse of the chosen one mythology, which you usually don't see in sci-fi. So there is that at least.
I mean, they hint at it because half of the movie is visions. Yeah. Like literally, like half of the movie is visions he has, and then you see at the end, he's going against his vision specifically. So I get to see what they're leaning towards and hinting at, but still, that should be a mid-season finale.
Yeah. Makes sense. Should we just dive into this since we're already talking? Yeah. Might as well.
Oh god, yeah, because what I was gonna say, it felt like we were watching Neo's story if Neo was playing Luke Skywalker, and if Luke Skywalker couldn't leave Tatooine. Like that's how I was feeling. I was like, because Neo didn't believe that he was the one or something, but he had all these powers. It was like so muddied up. I don't know. Anyways, hey. Not all of our episodes are going to be this bad. So you can listen to the rest of them over on crossthestreamsmedia.com. And you can find, like I said, all of our episodes over there. You can find our social medias over there. It's a pretty cool place. Actually, I checked it out the other day, and it looks like it's been upgraded. So check it out. It's really fun. And there's a little icon that's got a microphone on it. So if you want to be a part of our show, you can hit that microphone and record your own story. Hey, if you liked Dune, tell us. Hit that record button. Record. We'll put you on the next episode. I won't even hold back. I don't care what you say. I'm putting it in. Check out some of our other friends that are over there, like Burn Appetit, the Movie Gap, 3 Beers and a Mic, Dan Aykroyd Podcast, Front Row Negative, there's so many. I say this every week. There's tons, and they add more. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button because you're seeing us. And honestly, we could use that little boost in our ego. I know I could. Little pat on the back. That's what I call that like button, is a pat on the back. Do that. Anywhoosins, yeah, so like, subscribe, check us out over. Oh, and if you're not into the crossthestreamsmedia.com, check us out. We are at Secondary Heroes everywhere. All this is free for you and it's priceless to us. Let's get into this.
Awesome. So, again, we're about to spoil the movie. If you've not seen it, spoiler alert right here. Okay. Where do you guys want to start?
God, I want to end this. I want to be done.
That's fair. So, do you want to start with kind of the flow of the film, which it's too boring. I don't think we need to follow that narrative. Or do you want to start with things you actually liked?
Yeah, let's flow with the spice instead of the film.
We'll
start with what we liked.
Okay.
Yes.
I liked the spaceships. I thought that all the spaceships that I saw in this movie, I thought were cool.
The Dragonfly spaceship.
The Dragonfly spaceship, rad. that was really cool because it was something new. It was something we've never seen before. I was like, this looks like an X-Wing, but it's doing so much more than an X-Wing. So I thought that was pretty cool. The sandworm, I wish there was a lot more sandworm in this movie.
Just stick around if you want.
They hyped up the sandworm so much. I saw more sandworm in Mandalorian in a 30-minute episode than I did in a 2.5-hour movie. You know what I mean? Like that. I'd say those are my probably two favorite things were the sandworm and the spaceships.
Nice. Okay, I would say for me, the designs of everything, the world building, the ships, the costumes, the different houses and what they look like all of that. The art department was just spot on this.
Very detailed.
It was great sci-fi. It's like the kind of sci-fi you expect from like the 60s and 70s, like the bubbly ships and stuff. And it was really cool to see that on screen. But I feel like we haven't really seen that much, at least not in the last 40 years. So it was really kind of neat to see that. I did like the score. I know some people were mixed on it. Either they loved it or hated it. I do think it was mixed poorly, to Trevor's point, but I enjoyed it as a whole, like the actual experience of it. It kind of had like that epic kind of feel. Maybe not memorable, but something that I think helped elevate certain scenes, which were already kind of dull. What else did I like about it?
I don't know if we need to go over everything we liked about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are my
AKA
highlights.
the constant Gladiator music. Like, it felt like the Gladiator score that they were like, here, Gladiator music. Oh, look, Gladiator music.
Well, the score would have been so much better if the actors weren't whispering every line. I mean, even when they were celebrating, they were like, yes, oh, this is wonderful, yay.
Well, the best part is having the subtitles on. It's like ominous lamenting music. They describe the music
as opposed to just ominous music. Ominous lamenting music.
Oh, that's good.
I'd be distracted if I had subtitles on for an English, movie.
Oh, I had to.
Like too distracting.
I missed half the words they said.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would have too.
What about you, Trevor? What did you end up liking about this movie?
That's a good question. I mean, I definitely liked the ships, and I liked those ring lights that they had that flew around with you. Those were pretty cool.
Futuristic.
Oh, that's like their version of a torch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Carry around. I did have a few questions. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Oscar Isaac said that he wanted to be a pilot. Like, he's the Duke, and he wanted to be a pilot. I liked that line just because we know who he is.
The galaxy.
I don't know. It's tough. There's a lot of stuff I did not like. As I'm going over my notes, it's mainly stuff that I rolled my eyes at in the context of a movie that's overly dramatic and serious. They're like, oh my God, everything I'm doing is so important. But seemed to be no importance to anything they did.
This was going to be something I was going to bring up at some point anyways. I might as well bring it up now. And I think, it was too serious. I mean, all of his movies are too serious for me. They just are.
Yeah, it's just overly
serious.
But
this one in particular, like what Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy was he took this like dry world building type of book series and created liveliness and serendipity and laughter and joy and like
fun.
All these things. Fun, right?
Yes.
Like you could do
There's personality.
And they tried. They brought Jason Momoa in to try to do that, and like he couldn't do it. Like he was fine, but he did not have. There wasn't enough for him to even do to make it fun. It was just kind of like, I'll try to be the swashbuckling guy and die.
Well, he showed up like twice.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, all right, well, they tried, barely, but there wasn't enough of it. I think you're right. There's too many long dramatic pauses, and like I get that, but you can add a little bit of serendipity and humor into that narrative.
Have a little bit of fun with your movie. Yeah, you might be on some random planet, but hey, enjoy yourself while you're there. A little bit. It's not like you have to be in your... I don't know. It's like they found zero fun. It almost felt like, even watching it, it looked like nobody even in the crew had fun making it. Like it didn't feel like a movie where anybody's enjoying themselves.
No, I feel you there.
Kind of like artificial intelligence would make a movie where oh, this is how you make
Wow.
a movie.
Yeah.
You shoot it like this. You have these perfect
Mhm.
angled things. This is how you deliver lines specifically. Yeah,
Wow.
it didn't
Yeah,
feel like
Yeah.
any human actually touched this film.
yeah, his camera movements are pretty stationary and just kind of there. Like he can fill a scene nice, but he doesn't do much with the camera work. And
That's
the actors don't do much
interesting,
either.
though.
Yeah.
Right. It was like a robot making a movie with other robots for robots.
Yes, or
This
robots.
is how you're supposed to make a movie. It's like they researched all the movies that have been nominated for Best Pictures and are critically acclaimed, and they're like, you take elements and you do this, this, and this is how you make a good movie.
I'm gonna make that a shirt.
It's like
It's
a
a
Wes
movie made for robots by robots.
Anyways, George Lucas took the
Dune.
idea and did it better. So
He made it fun.
yeah,
Exactly.
fun.
Yep. You make it fun. Wow. As you're wearing your Star Wars shirt. Yeah.
I
Now-
mean, shout out to Denis Villeneuve saying before this, way back when he wanted to make this film, like in 2012, he's like,
It's been a while.
Dune
before-
is the adult Star Wars.
Right.
Don't say that to the biggest fandom there is. That's just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. Well, and even if I didn't look at it like it was a Star Wars, I can't call it a ripoff because Star Wars ripped it.
Star Wars ripped
Dune.
this off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
But they did it. But we just said it. They did it so much better. Like we can run in circles, pretty much saying, "Have fun with your movie." That's what makes people want to come back and watch it. Like people had fun with Star Wars because there was fun in there. Yeah, there's action, there's dialogue, there's a lot of other things going on too. This had everything except for fun. There's
Yeah, I
a
can
couple good
see-
examples.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Prague.
I was just gonna say, if they had made this a TV show, they could have had more drama to it.
Right.
But when you have it in a movie, it's different. You need more breathing room in a movie.
Yeah. This would be
I-
better set up like Game of Thrones, because Game of
Yeah.
Thrones is dense and there's all kinds of the houses and things you have to introduce to people. And the first few episodes of Game of Thrones are hard to get through.
But once
I
you
like
get
the
through
first
those
few
episodes,
but yeah.
yeah, once you get through them though, all of a sudden it's like now you're kind of invested
Now
in these
you're in the
worlds.
world. Yeah, and they
Yes.
have big points to happen to keep you kind of looking forward to and latched onto.
Yeah.
Again, the scope and scale of this movie, I don't know what actually happened just because it's so small potatoes. Like, there's still this emperor we didn't meet. And
Mhm.
Okay, so we never
we're
met,
dealing
like,
with barons and, dukes, and it's all like baby stuff going on. And he's
Right.
like, oh, here, you go die because I don't care. I don't like you, kind of, a little bit. I don't even have the audacity to tell you in person that I don't like you. I'm just going to have my minions kind of fight over it. I don't know, it's small scope. And then our chosen one's big thing is to meet with these people on the desert. Oh, I'm going to bound with the desert people, and we're going to have an uprising on the specific desert planet with our big giant worm that is our god that rules over the land and stuff. It was small in scope for how serious they're like, oh, what I'm doing is so important.
And that's, I think, where they failed, because that's kind of like the whole point of the books is much bigger than what they showed us in this movie. It was like, why are they doing this? Like, I kept thinking, like, why aren't they telling the audience the big picture? It's like they're saving it for part 2, which may never happen. And it's
Right.
like,
You still got to
could have
tease something.
included that.
You got to show what is at stake.
Right, you gotta show us the stake. You gotta explain to people really the significance of the spice. Like, they keep mentioning it all the time. They kind of hint at it, like, oh, it's a hallucinogen. Like, no, spice is integral to the story, and they just mention it as spice. Really, they didn't really deep dive into it and
Well, I
what it
feel like
means and what
that's
it could mean.
That's like the one thing that sunk in with me was them saying the spice is a hallucination thing, whatever, and it's the thing that makes space travel possible.
Right.
That's like
those two
all
things
I
are somewhat
retained
important
from this whole movie.
They didn't explain anything else. It was like, all
No.
right, well.
They go over it one time and they show fingers picking it up and rubbing it, and then it was like, okay, now we're just gonna say spice a million times, but not really do much else with it.
Mhm.
And back to, so 2 examples I saw specifically comparing this to Star Wars directly is they have a Jedi mind trick. They call it the voice or whatever. And they
Right.
talk in this deep, like Batman voice. And then you think in Star Wars, when we're first introduced to it, Obi-Wan says, these are not the droids you're looking for. And it's funny because the Stormtrooper's like, oh, I guess. Imagine if he went with a Batman voice. These are not the droids you're looking for. It would be creepy. You're like, what is going on? Luke's like, I'm getting out. I don't know what's with this old guy. I am bailing.
That's funny. So I feel the opposite. I actually enjoyed the use of the voice in this, more so than the Force. Even actually, I kind of like the creepy voices being used over it. Like there's some other entity that's the voices and not just your own. So I enjoyed that scene. I think it could have been funnier. I think it could have been more like that scene in Star Wars. This was a scene that was not in the books. It was added between his mother and him at the table in the morning. So he could have done anything he wanted with that scene, and it was just pass me the water. Okay, right, I get that because they're going to a desert planet. You need water. It's clever from a director's standpoint, but it wasn't all that fun or funny or kind of like.
We spent 15 minutes trying to pass the water.
Yeah, trying to pass the time. It more like.
My God, dude, just pass the water.
It's like, Mom, just run the water.
What's the deal with the water?
What's the deal with the water? Use your inside voice, honey.
Pass the water.
Pass the water, Mom.
Why'd you say that name?
Why'd you say? When he was in the tent and did that, I'm like, oh my God, please don't. Please don't.
And then you gotta learn the right pitch. If you don't know the right pitch, it won't work.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, they could have done a lot more different with that. I do like Rebecca Ferguson. Just pointing that out there.
No, that was the mother, right?
Yeah. I thought she did one of the best jobs of acting in the whole film.
Compared to everybody else. Yeah. Yeah, she was really nice.
I felt like she was constantly I just felt like every time she was on screen, she just felt very meek and like very like she was always like cradling herself and like I don't know. That's the only thing that I got out of her whole character.
It's kind of her character, though. I mean, she is like a nun. She's part of the order. You know, she's not really, I don't know, someone who. I mean, look at how the head queen was dressed in that shard with the huge veil and everything.
Oh yeah.
So they're kind of like that.
So I get.
And she remember she's also like this is a big deal for her. Like she was trying to create the chosen one and produced a boy instead of a girl. So she's kind of on the outs with a very powerful force, and I think,
well,
she's scared for her son.
Training her son in these powers, and I guess that's not something you can do. Like you're not allowed to train.
You're not supposed to.
There's a whole thing about them trying to bring this being into being, and it really should be a woman, not a man. So for her to teach a male this was a no to the nuns.
Gotcha. Now, the one thing that I was curious about, it seemed like is anything based on like an Earth type of is this supposed to be far in the future type of thing? Because a lot of the technology
so far in the future is ridiculous. It's
10,091.
No, it's about 22,000 years. 10,000 is after
the very start.
Created.
It says...
No, I know. Why he did that was really annoying. He threw off the audience. So it's not. He didn't put like AD in front of it. He didn't put anything, right? Because he never explains anything, which is also annoying. So it's 10,000 years after they have figured out the space-time travel stuff and defeated the robots and took away like basic AI. It's the background of the story is dense in and of itself. So it's really about 20 to 22,000 years after the birth of Christ. So pretty far in the future from us.
So because there
like
were times where
we almost reverted back. Let's put it that way. It's like we've gone so far into technology that we've almost reverted back to primates. There've been so many religious wars that have happened, people being enslaved and getting rid of technology, AI, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because when they're talking to each other, they're talking to each other through their comms, and it sounded like a comm that we would use right now in a helicopter.
Yeah, I mean, there's still technology. I'm just saying they got rid of like artificial intelligence and relying on that to do things. So, anyways, yeah, my God.
I mean, they have the whole the whole witches thing. I think would be an interesting like side thing. The witches are just kind of there. They call them whatever stupid name, but they're essentially the witches on Dothamir. It has a very Dothamir vibe with these whole planets, and we need to have women, and the men are just not meant to have anything. It has that whole vibe.
It is. So think of them as those women from Dathomir, but they're the only ones that use the Force. So they're the ones that wield the Force. They're the Jedi as well as the Sith. They're everything. But yeah, they're almost like a side story, but really they're kind of the main story as well, but they're shuffled off to the side in this film for some reason. Like that whole scene where he gets tested is like a huge point in the book. And I felt like it went by pretty quick and they didn't explain much about it. It was like it just happened. It was like, oh, you passed the test. All right. Okay. We won't kill you.
Thank you for the glass of water.
Yeah, thanks.
The test is where he puts his hand in the box.
Oh,
I was hoping something happened. And he like showed pain on his face for a few seconds. Then he just got over it and he was good. And that was passing the test.
So what Denis, whatever his name is, well, he didn't really show what was actually happening to him. Instead, he showed it like it was a vision, which it kind of was. But he was also like being immolated, like he was on fire, but you just can't see it because it wasn't really happening. It was happening at a different point in time to him, but at that moment. And I think he could have done a better job of that because to me, like on film, it looks like he's just having a vision of like the trees burning and a charred hand. And it's like,
that's what it looked like.
Yes, but that's actually happening to him in that moment. And I don't feel like he conveyed that properly.
It wasn't very well explained either.
No, he looked like he was chill. He was pretty chill.
Yeah, he was like,
having a vision.
Well, it was almost like he grabbed his coffee mug a little too early, like after he had just heated up. And it was like, okay, it's starting to cool down in my hand now. I think I'm cool. Now I could take it out and be like, oh, all right. Yeah. So it's so amazing that you brought that up because I'm like, I totally forgot about that. I forgot about a lot of this movie.
There's so much. I mean, I can talk about this, but it's like they're in the book. It's dense. It's just too dense.
But that's why I'm really glad that you read the book. You actually have a background with this book. You, from what it sounds like, you somewhat enjoyed. You enjoyed the book, I think. Yeah, okay, but that's the thing is like. You have a knowledge.
I enjoy what it does. I enjoy what it does because it talks about, religious ideology. It talks about colonialism and all that kind of stuff, and it puts it into sci-fi, and and philosophy as well. Like it's really deep in philosophy. It's really well done in that regards. But that's like all headspace stuff. That's really hard to put on screen.
Right. Yeah.
Really hard to put on screen.
So another standout for me is that weird spider thing that's all black. That was like a pet, but it had human hands. I don't know what that was, but I wanted more on that.
Neither do I. I don't know what that was, but yeah, more creatures like that, please. Yeah, that guy, the Baron, has a lot of creepy stuff.
Well, it had fun creatures throughout the movie. I thought that was cool.
The Baron thing. That was probably the stupidest. Like, I don't know how it's conveyed in the book, but the idea that dude poisons the guy straight point blank in the face and that everyone else's eyes melt out of their socket. And I was like, oh, he killed the Baron. So when he got killed, it was okay. And then he's just floating up the top of the roof and he's okay. And there's no real explanation for that whatsoever. And don't tell me it's the stupid shield things that select. These are probably the worst, stupidest shields I've seen in anything ever. These shields, when they get bombed, their planes are all attacked and stuff. The shields, the only thing they did is they flashed blue and then the ship exploded. I don't know what those shields are supposed to do, but they need to come up with new shield tech.
No, I agree 100%. Like how he conveyed both that scene and the shields really bugged me. And he doesn't explain any of it. Like you said, I feel like he's saving so much for the second half that could have been explained in the first half to help you get through this because
it's almost
filmmaking. It's almost like he's using, he's withholding information that would have explained stuff as like a cliffhanger or as oh, a plot twist later. It's like, that's not a plot twist. That's part of the narrative. You need to tell people certain things to make certain scenes make sense. Like, no one knows why they have these shields. He never tells you why they have these shields because he just doesn't go back into any of the past histories of anything, and it's just frustrating. And I don't like the way they looked either.
Well, okay, so first time that they happened, though, they looked good. I at least I thought so. I was like, okay, that's pretty neat. And then it was almost like overdone at that point. It was like after you see it one time, you see it minute after minute. Just
well, yeah, but because the idea is that everyone has it. Like, everyone wears
Right.
it from every house. It's just a thing. Like, a war happened. They figured something out. Now they have to wear shields all the time.
Yeah, but even their shields, example, I mean, blades are going straight through the shields. I mean, nothing's holding that stuff back.
Yeah, the second example compared to Star Wars is that their shields, they flash blue and red, but they're using regular daggers and swords rather than lightsabers. Lightsabers for a visual media look really cool rather than this flickering blue thing that kind of obscures the character. That was not visually appealing to me. And then there's no practicality to it. Just have some fun with the visuals. That was clunky.
Yeah, have fun with the visual. Like if you watch the 84, the visuals are notorious for that suit or for the armor suit. It's notoriously bad, but at least it looked like it was something fun and silly. It was like geometric shapes, like over them, and it looked kind of choppy and funny. But like at least David Lynch tried to be fun with that. Like I didn't really care for his movie at all, but like at least he was trying to have fun with that aspect of it. And I felt like they were just like, hey, let's go. What's the cheapest, easiest way that we can make this? All right, that like that, okay.
But Prague, were you saying there's a reason the Baron survived that point blank?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with like lineage and what happens to him with the nuns, and they're called the Ben Jesuit, I believe is how it's pronounced. Order. Basically, he was like hexed by one of them, and there's a whole thing. Like if you watch like David, like I feel like David Lynch's version did a better version of like portraying him physically, because in this he just looks like he's fat, like he's this big fat man.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's like a special like spine support thing because he can't walk on his feet anymore, right? Because he's so fat.
Like, so to an audience, I would think, oh, he's just gluttonous. Okay, like no, he's supposed to be bulbous and gross and grotesque and have boils and like just be ugly. Like he's not supposed to look like a Skarsgård. You know, it's like cover some of that up. And they didn't do that, which is weird. And that would have helped maybe explain some of it. Like, oh, he obviously has been through this kind of stuff a lot. He must be able to survive whatever poisoning. I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't wrap my head around what that guy's deal was. I honestly like
because they never tell you. And
and that's the thing. Don't leave your audience confused. Yeah. Like it did not intrigue me to want to go see a second one of these. You know what I mean? Like, give me enough to where I'm like intrigued. There's no intrigue with this movie.
Yeah, I think the only intrigue is that he has so many different names. He's like the Lisan al-Ghib. He's the Mahdi. He's also Paul Atreides, and then he wants to be Kwisatz Haderach or whatever. I don't know. I couldn't get any of them if I didn't have subtitles and then wrote it down. I don't know what name he's supposed to be.
When I first read this book, it took like the first 15 pages were just his name. Like I just kept going. I'm like, how many of these names are going?
Wait, is he like Daenerys' name, where she just lists off like 20 minutes of name titles?
But he starts out that way. It's like she takes time, like 7 seasons to get there. He's like already all these names. I'm like, shoot, is this his brother? Are we still talking about the same Paul? Like what? I don't know what's happening. So yes, it's even worse in the books.
I couldn't wrap my head around that.
Everyone's name is hard to pronounce in the books, as is the movie. To this day, I forget what the Sandworm's name is.
He's Shai Hulud.
Shai Hulud, thank you.
Sandworm.
I'll remember it for like a few minutes, and then it'll just go away like a fart in the wind.
So I watched the first like hour and some amount. There was 50 minutes left, and I was like falling asleep because this movie's so boring. So I watched the second 50 minutes, and that second 50 minutes is essentially them on the run the entire time, and nothing really happened at all. And then the movie ends, and the best line of the movie is this is only the beginning. I almost
I'm like,
wish
why did
I
you
could
say
delete
that?
it from my mind. Like it was a file on my computer and I just permanently erased once it said this is only the beginning.
Well, how about that fight at the end too, where he fights that dude and he's like, just yield, and they're like, no, you have to fight to the death.
I enjoyed that scene a lot.
Really? Because I thought the fight was like slow and clunky. I was
It
like,
was
this is
fencing
not
with daggers, and I don't know how you fence with daggers. They had fencing poses, they did fencing maneuvers, but again, they're using daggers, and it just didn't work.
I'm not saying the fight choreography was the part that I liked about it. I liked like everything else surrounding it, like the idea about it,
Yeah.
subverting expectations, and the dialogue was nice because it was cut from David Lynch's Dune. David Lynch did not include this scene for some reason in his film, but this kind of felt like the pinnacle or the biggest moment from this movie.
Oh my god, this
Like-
was supposed to be the biggest moment?
Yeah, so that was what I was
moment that
wondering.
he became the one. Yeah, that's
Oh
like
What
my
is the
God.
climax of this film?
that is supposed to be that moment. Really.
That was
It's,
terrible.
oh, I
He
am now
doesn't-
one of I am the chosen
He doesn't
one.
go through that much trials and tribulations in that moment. Like I never thought that he was close to being defeated or die or anything
Right.
like that.
Because he
Yep.
had the upper hand the entire fight
Yeah.
in this very slow, clunky fight. And then what? He got his first kill. You're the one now.
Well, no, it's just because his vision, he dies
Not
in the
quite
vision.
that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot to unpack that he didn't like. The director did not do a good job of setting it up as well as I would have wanted to. I think the visions were not well done in this. Every vision felt like just a like slow-mo music video shot of Zendaya's face, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
Like,
God, she was in
you
the
get it.
movie a ton, but
She's
never said
important.
anything until the last 3 minutes.
right? I mean, she's very important later, but still, there's other stuff to show in the vision that are just as important, if not more so. That they just kind of skimmed over. It was like, oh, here's a long shot of her face and a quick shot of this moment. Okay.
And then
Nice.
shout out to those date palms that got a whole sequence
Oh,
in the
yeah.
movie of how much water they take. And I don't know why that mattered or anything. And then they got burnt. There's these magical 20 date palms that now we just planted them because we want to waste water. I don't know anything beyond that. And they were on fire.
They take five. What was it? Five men. The amount
Water
of
for
water
5 men. Yeah.
for 5 men
A
each
day.
a day.
Yeah.
On a desert planet. But these trees are sacred, so we gotta continue watering them. How much oxygen do they pump out? They must be pumping out a lot to keep that planet oxygenated.
Yeah, see, it seems like that without context are going to be meaningless in a film like this because you're like
Yes.
everyone else probably like, why are these palm trees in here? It's because they didn't explain the thousands of years of war with religion and everything and ideology and prophecies and.
I mean, the
et cetera.
final vision or whatever finally kind of shows the idea of a holy war.
Yes.
But I don't
Finally.
even care enough to that point.
And why would you, right?
And
yeah.
I feel like you shouldn't make movies for people who read the books. There's no reason to.
Well, especially a book
Mhm.
that's as old as it is.
But
It's
even
almost
like
like
book audience is just going to be small in our society. The book audience
Right.
is going to be tiny compared to a film audience. So
Exactly.
take the ideas, spice it up, and have something that's
Spice it up.
made for a visual medium. Take advantage of
I
having
like
a
that.
visual medium.
Spice up your life a little bit.
God, it could have used the Spice Girls.
Oh,
Yeah.
honestly, yeah, it probably could have.
I
Well,
would have
they
been
should
all
Should
right.
sing
in
a
the
whole
middle.
song about spice.
Spice up your life. Oh yeah.
It's a galaxy
Bring one of its
tour.
visions. Ginger Spice comes up.
Oh my
Spice up
God!
your life.
Please, somebody edit that. Him having a
Oh, it's been
vision,
done.
and it's just the Spice Girls.
Oh, it's already been done. It's been done for a few days now on Twitter.
Oh God!
There's
Wow.
already been memes all over the place with Spice Girls and Dune. So what did you guys think then of our main two? I guess we want to call them protagonists, the actors, Zendaya and Timothy.
Zendaya is a protagonist?
Spoiler alert! Yeah.
No, I
Sorry.
understand they're like forcing it, but I don't even know why she's in the film in this movie. They could have shown, it could have been any actor.
It is
I don't.
surprising. I don't know why either. They could have saved her for the sequel, in my opinion.
And she
So.
sounded exactly like she does in Spider-Man, like
Yeah,
tone. Like I don't know. Like, are they supposed to have any kind of accent on this planet, or everybody sounds exactly the same?
There's nothing mentioned in the books, so it could be whatever. I mean, the idea is that they're the oppressed, right? You know, you come down, they're the people in the Middle East. So if you wanted to, you
It's
could
just
Middle Eastern accent, but
well,
I
you
think
don't
that
need
would
a Middle Eastern accent, but all the words they're using shouldn't just be, they're using all kinds of different dialects to create these words. So it's weird that everyone just speaks like American English. I don't understand that.
That's the director's choice. So yeah, I don't know either. That's a good point. I don't know. Very strange.
I thought Timothy Chalamet couldn't have been worse. He talks in a monotone and he swallows half of his words. He doesn't really project. He doesn't seem to have any on-screen presence whatsoever. I don't know who anointed him as the next best thing. I don't get it.
I've never seen him in anything. So this is my first time seeing him. So I was interested. I'm like, everyone's been hyping up this guy. I'm like, all right, I'll see what he's like. I'm like,
who was he?
The main character, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like,
I almost didn't care about him. Like right once he was on screen, I was like,
yeah, I was like,
it was really interesting because when he's talking, I turned on subtitles, and then Oscar Isaac's introduced, and I turned the subtitles off because I could hear everything that he said. So it wasn't. There's something about the way he projects his voice. He does not fully deliver his lines.
I would say part of the performance might be the director as well as the source material. I mean, he's not necessarily the most charismatic or interesting character in the books either. So you're not really supposed to like love him, in my opinion. So it's like, you don't want to make him too charismatic. I just didn't really feel much from his performance. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it outright or anything. I just didn't understand the hubbub around him as an actor. Like I didn't feel anything.
I've only seen him in Lady Bird. I haven't seen Call Me by Your Name. That's I guess where he got his big thing with the Armie Hammer relationship and stuff. Right. In Lady Bird, he's almost the same exact character.
Lady Bird, get over here. Bobby, get Lady Bird. Get her back in the yard.
I kind of want some of those.
Different Lady Bird. Oh man,
some of those contact lenses to make me look like I live on Spice or whatever.
Yeah, let's get some of those.
Hey, you guys found something you liked.
There you go. Yeah, that's nice. I would like that. But sandworms, yeah.
I remember the contact lenses, but I don't remember what they were for. What was the point of the contact lenses?
No, I'm being sarcastic. I'm saying Zendaya wore the contact lenses to give her the look of the eyes. Like I really, in our world, I want those contact lenses.
So
gotcha.
For Alex, the reason their eyes are blue is because they've been in contact with the spice for so long that the psychoactive chemicals have turned their eyes blue. Like that's just the chemical reaction that happens to the body. That's all. Nothing else to it.
Man.
And then the sandworm, could that have been more anticlimactic where they were doing the straight line run? When there's a big thing coming at you, it's not going to weave around, okay? It's like if a whale was charging you versus a dolphin. You just go off to the side. It's not going to do this 90-degree, like, turn on a dime.
It's so big. How is it going to turn on a dime? It's huge.
Let's run in a straight line away from it. And then they get to the rocks, and it just lifts out of the ground. That was one of the most anticlimactic things I've seen in any movie ever. Imagine if there was any chase sequence ever. Everything just stops. They stare at each other, and then they leave.
Yeah, that whole scene could have been done so much better. And it's a really important scene, too. Like, it's supposed to be a big moment where you think he's going to attack him, and instead he sits there in awe of Paul. Like, you're like, wait,
That's what the worm was doing? I thought the things on the ground pushed it away.
Nope, he is, well, eventually he got called away, but he sat up and was, like, trying to communicate with Paul. Like, there was a oneness with him. But you don't get that because there was nothing, that the whole scene was just, And it was also dark, so you couldn't really see it. So
the dark lighting was good to show what cameras are capable of, that it picked up everything in 4K quality, but it still muted everything. Like, the entire movie is muted. Like, I don't know if the books are like, hey, this world is muted no matter what planet you go to. Everything has this muted grayish overtone to it.
Nope. So for those of you at home who don't know, and maybe you guys don't know either, but one of my favorite directors was going to make this film like 30 years ago, maybe even 40 years ago now. I can't remember. But it never got off the ground. It was way over budget and everything went crazy, and the director didn't want to do what the studio wanted to do, so it never got made. But there's a documentary on Amazon right now that's called Jodorowsky's, I can't say his name, Jodorowsky's Dune. So it's basically a documentary of him trying to get this film made with Pablo Picasso, doing all the designs and stuff for it. So it's like going to be super surrealist and hyper colorful and crazy. And it would have been rad. And it would have been so like eye-catching and fun. Like those two together, like, oh, it would be bonkers. It'd be lots of humor. So we missed that opportunity many years ago, sadly.
So when you were saying one of my favorite directors was going to make this movie, I don't know why, but my brain went to Wes Anderson, and then I started imagining this movie as Wes Anderson movie. And I don't know why I even thought Wes Anderson would have been one of your favorites, but just imagine Dune made by Wes Anderson.
Bunch of pasty white people running around in pastel. Oh, no, thank you. Dude, man.
I don't know. It might be better than what I watched, so.
Maybe, yeah, that's true for sure. At least he has some serendipity in his films.
Exactly.
But yeah, to your point, Trevor, yeah, it could have been colorful. They didn't have to be all muted colors the whole time. Like every planet looked like it was the same planet to me. Just one it rained and one it didn't, and one had sand. Yeah.
Yeah.
The funniest thing, I think, as I'm watching it, we know the original trilogy is known for kind of like the personality of the characters and the overarching thing. Like people love those characters. In this movie, or then in the prequels, we come around and we're going to tell the story of Anakin. And we have all these characters, and George Lucas specifically is directing them to be wooden. You know, Qui-Gon Jinn, like all these people are as wooden as possible. Like Natalie Portman can act. Liam Neeson can act. And he's like, I don't want you to show too much. I don't want you to. Yeah. And then in episode 1, it's all about, you know, trade agreements and the Federation and all these politics of it. This movie feels like it took the worst parts of the prequels, the wooden acting, the trade negotiations, and the politics of things, and it's like, let's do that. And I have no idea who's like, that's a good idea.
No, when I watch this movie, I'm like, I'm pretty sure Trevor is going to mention trade agreements and the Phantom Menace when we talk about this, because that is what this movie
have to.
Like. Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's what a lot of the book feels like too, if I'm being honest.
That's fine, and I understand that's where like George Lucas got kind of ideas to do. Like he's like, I didn't do that in the original trilogy. I had too much fun. Let's bring that back and water it down and ground it more in the original Dune. But maybe that's not the best avenue.
No, it's not. Boring.
I'm not gonna lie, guys. I have nothing else for this movie.
I think I was like zoned down a while ago.
I kind of was, man. Like, it was just all around hard to watch. It was tough. So,
and it's only the beginning.
I didn't think it was good, but I enjoyed it.
No,
what it was.
I'm never doing anything ever again that has to do with Dune. I'm actually going to delete that audiobook because I have zero interest in. After watching that, I was like, there is not one thing in this entire movie that is interesting. Nothing.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that he could do to make you interested in this film either, or in the next one. So
no,
I'm not going to ever try to convince you to watch a sequel to this.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, by the time the sequel comes out, they said they haven't shot it yet. Like, it's not like Lord of the Rings where they shot everything at once, which seems like a mistake to begin with. But that means this isn't going to come out for like 2 or 3 years at the best optimal time, you know,
that's if
timeline
they greenlight
of stuff.
It tomorrow, dude.
Yeah, and I won't remember this movie after this podcast. Literally, when we're done with this podcast, I won't remember anything. And then they're going to tell me in 2 or 3 years, here's this part 2. I'm like, nope. I'm not rewatching that to get like caught up. Oh, let me get back into Dune.
Don't you remember Paul's 5 names? Don't you remember all of them? Hope you do.
You guys want to do a rewatch of Dune? Let's have a rewatch party. Golly, dude, this isn't like.
Here's the thing. There are a lot of people that loved this movie to death. Like favorite movie of all time, favorite movie of the year type people. So
They
there are
can.
people out there.
That's perfectly fine.
That's
I
why
know,
we're
I'm
gonna
just
get
saying there
so
are,
many
apparently.
thumbs down. We're gonna get people giving us bad reviews. You know what? Bad review it up, baby, because I am not changing my
You gotta
stance
just
on
tell it
this.
like it is. There's
That's what we
wasted
do,
scenes,
man.
and it's structured poorly, and they don't describe a complex book in any kind of fashion that's entertaining. And you just gotta leave it at that. You can like whatever you like, but they could have done a lot better job to make this an entertaining film instead of just a beautifully shot film that is super dense and is not encouraging for mass appeal.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
Cool. So
let's end it.
Luckily, we didn't talk as long as the movie is. Not like Trick or Treat from last week.
Oh, that was fantastic. I still
least it
say
was
that's
fun.
a great movie.
That
That was a fun movie.
If Dune was an hour and 15 minutes, it probably would have been better too. But
God, yes, there was so much they could have cut out.
To everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed. I certainly don't know what we're talking about next week, but until then, we hope you enjoyed, and I messed it up the intro, so goodbye.
Goodbye, Prog out.
Hey, spice up your life. Adios, y'all.